Just a little bit about me and who I am. I was on the general medicine unit of Lowell University with adults, the geriatric unit. And the physician had written an order for me to go and see an elderly woman on the unit because she was having a very difficult time with the medical regimen of things. So I went in to see her. And I spent like 2 hours talking with her. Within that 2 hours, here's what I found out. She had lost her husband 6 months prior, was on the same floor in the same hospital, and she did not have the time to process that, to think about what this all meant. So we talked a little bit about that. Of course, the time had gone by, and I told her, you know what, I gotta see some other people, but I'll be glad to come back and talk with you, and we can talk more about that. And she said, oh, great, man. I just need to talk this out. I'm just wondering why I was having such a difficult time with my admission here in this hospital. I said, no, we're talking about it. So she asked me, well, what's your name? And I said, so I was thinking, okay, how can I do this? So I came up with this. I told her, I said, listen, my last name reminds me of it rhymes, okay? It rhymes with the candy bar, Almond Joy. Just remember that. Almond Joy. Dawn, Gamundoy, Dawn, Almond Joy. So just remember that. But of course you're thinking, buddy, that's a good thing. I'll remember that. So the next day, she calls the nurse and she said, nurse, I want to talk to that guy. And she said, what guy? He said, the guy that came yesterday and we talked about my husband who had died here. And she said, well, was he a physician? Was he a physical therapist? Was he a chaplain? What was the guy? He says, I don't know. I can't remember. He told me that his last name reminded me of a candy bar. It rhymes with Almond Joy. And I can't remember what his name was. And so this went on for several minutes. And the nurse said, you know what? Think about it. I'll come back in a few minutes. And think about it. And I'll page him for you. Not a problem. So she goes out. She comes back a half an hour later and she said, okay, do you remember what the guy's name? Do you remember a patient? Did he leave you a calling card or something? And, she said, yeah, he did leave me his card, but I can't remember. And this went on again. It was obvious that she was getting frustrated. The nurse was getting frustrated. And he said, ma'am, I don't know what to do. He goes, yeah, but he told me his last name rhymes with the candy bar Almond Joy. At that time, I walk in, and she goes, yes, him, Don Mounds. The nurse looks at me and goes, Don Mounds? I go, I'll tell you later. Anyway, Don Gamundoy. I'm recently retired from Lowell University Medical Center, Children's Hospital, as a clinical social worker. My last stint that started in 2020 was on the pediatric ICU. So I became part of the child abuse team that was developed. And prior to that, I worked in emergency medicine, trauma, crisis intervention. So that's a little bit more of my background. Okay, any questions so far? Is that me? My son would kill me if he saw this picture. I don't have his consent. So it's a good thing I didn't tell him. That was my son. Can you believe that? He was 16 years old. No. Anyway, child abuse. As I go on, if you have questions, you have concerns, please say so. Okay, this is not an easy topic to talk about. I've seen the worst of the worst, and it's unimaginable. You think that people have the audacity to harm children. Matthew 18. It's been used multiple times. You've heard the story about how Jesus talks about his disciples. Oh no, have the children come. What are you talking about? These are my favorite people, right? And it's the children who has the heart of what? The Word of God. You can come to me. But he makes it very clear. Anybody does anything to them that leads them astray, okay, they'll be better off putting in a millstone and tying them to the bottom of their lake and throwing them to the bottom of the sea. Very clear. Don't touch my children. They're very precious to me. The value of children continued. On my desk, I have a couple of plaques, posters, number one. And one of them says, all that is of any importance is what we do for our children. I live by that. Very important. The second one, a society that does not protect their own is doomed to exist. As educators, we have this thing that we always have to follow, and that's about objectives. So, some of it is right up there. You can read this. But I also want to make a little bit of a disclaimer. This is not an in-depth. This is a very basic and general presentation about child abuse. Okay, unless you live and work in a field such as I have. I met a Pathfinder and Adventurer who works Superior Court or San Bernardino. I said, so you know about this? He goes, yes, I hear about it and see about it all the time in court. Okay? Yes?
Can you go back? I want to finish what you put up there.
This guy here?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have this, I have the objectives on the next slide, but take a look at that. Okay? This is kind of the order that we will go through. Everybody have a handout? Yes? Yep. How are we doing? Good? Oh, too fast? No? Shall we do it again? One more time? Go backwards? Okay. Okay, there will be a test. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. There will be a test. In fact, there is a test. There's a pretest I'm going to give you. Let's see where you are. Okay. I'll give you 60 credits for this. Okay, we're good? Yep. Child abuse. It's always important about the definition. In the Penal Code, it has this. Now, I'll let you read it in depth later on, but I highlight or underline some very important pieces of the definition. Okay, inflicted, other than accidental means, willful harming by another person. Okay, persons who willfully causes or permits any child who inflicts unjustifiable physical pain, mental suffering, and who have been in your care and custody children. Okay. The one definition that I always harp on is intentional and willful harm to a child. Okay, without and what? Okay. Reasonable suspicion. I don't hold you responsible for learning the full definition of child abuse. But for a person who has a reasonable suspicion that some intentional harm has come to it. Everyday person. Okay, reasonable suspicion. You don't have to say, oh, yes, on the night of the 14th at 8 o'clock at night, I can visually see. No. You think that it occurred, that somebody's hurting you as a child? Yes, that's a reasonable suspicion. Are we clear on that? Yeah? For the sake of not having to go through and looking at that list of who is mandated reporter, if you are in the business of caring for children, such as in Adventurers or Pathfinders, where you are in children's ministry in the church. Okay? So I'm going to look at these three categories: Pathfinders, Adventurers, and children's ministry in the church. I'm going to tell you, you are a mandated reporter. Amen. Bless you. You are deemed a mandated reporter. Okay? Keep that in mind. Or somewhere, if you had to go to court and you ended up in court and they say, are you a mandated reporter? And you go, I don't know what it is. Have you taken a class or a course from Don Gamundoy from Oakland University? Yes, you are a mandated reporter. And I have your name here on my list. I do. You are a mandated reporter. Anybody have any questions about being a mandated reporter? Okay, so we are in the category of child care provider. Okay, that's the category. Otherwise, the penal code is list very specifically. Medical doctor, and it goes on. But we are in the category of mandated reporters as child care providers. Okay. Verbal reporting to a child protective service agency. There are two of them: Child Protective Services or law enforcement. Okay? Child Protective Services to law enforcement. CPS, okay, Child Protective Services or law enforcement. In the city in which the abuse has occurred. Lastly, when do I report it? As soon as reasonably possible. Sometimes we go camping, they don't have cell service, they don't have telephone, they don't have any of that. You can't make a report right away. That's why you put in there immediately or as soon as reasonably possible. Okay, everybody clear on that? Okay, and we'll talk a little bit, because 2024, Oshkosh. We forget about Oshkosh. As Pathfinders, and Adventurers, we have gone to Oshkosh for the last century. So we have always referred to as, remember Oshkosh, have you going to Oshkosh? Well, in 2025, things are going to change. We're going to Gillette, Wyoming. It is not in Australia. It's Gillette, United States of America. So, this is going to be something new for everybody. Okay, because we haven't had the big camporee. And I'm talking about not just 10, 15, 20,000. We're talking 50, 60,000 Pathfinders. Amazing. 50, 60. By the time Saturday comes around, we're talking about 55, 60,000 people in one place. And they all look alike because they wear their uniform. And you think, oh, who are these people? So anyway. Here are phone numbers. You see, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County, San Diego, LA County. Okay, this is for Southern California. They're listed there for you. Okay, now, one other thing. You can call anonymously. Okay, you can call and say, you know what, I want to report child abuse. I want to do it anonymously. And they'll say, fine. What's the information that you have? A person who reports child abuse, okay, cannot be sued. Well, you can be sued, but you are not held responsible. In other words, you are covered. Okay, you are covered if you report without giving me your name. Okay, confidentially, your name will not be released. Here's a number. I put down the California hotline, so wherever you are in California, you can use those numbers. Or you can use the Child Help hotline, which is a 1-800 number in the United States. Okay? They will take your information and, of course, where you live, where you reside. Okay? You can use that. You can use that number. Now, I'm going to give you, let's see, written. Within 36 hours. The form that I give you is a form that's used here in California. The instructions are in the back. I would say use it. You can Xerox it and use it for however long that you need. Yes, please. Very self-explanatory. So written. So when you make a call to a CPS or law enforcement agency, you can ask them, okay, where do you want me to send this to? They'll give you an address. Nowadays, they have an address, and also they have an email. Okay, some counties, some states have it online, so you don't have to deal with the paper. Okay. What becomes interesting is, even though that this is a California form, use it. Like say, for example, we're going to go to Gillette, Wyoming for the Camporee. Okay? Because you are from California. Okay? They will forward that to the California to follow up in the office. Why? Well, there's a couple things. Whenever I suspect child abuse, who else is at home? There's other children. If you believe that the child that you are seeing, okay, is being abused for whatever reason, and you think or you know or you have known that, wait, they have siblings at home, they need to be protected as well. Okay? So that's the reason why report at the place you believe, where you believe the abuse has occurred, and as much information as you can. Take a look at the form there for what they ask. Thank you. Okay. Any questions so far? Clear?
I do have a question.
Yes.
In regards to the phone number, you got one for, like, Hemet is Riverside County, and then we got, like, the overall U.S. hotline. Mm-hmm. As far as, like, is there a delay if we were to call the U.S. hotline versus one for Riverside?
Sometimes there is. Okay, sometimes there is a delay. If you have the option to, well, number one, protect the child. Okay, if you feel that there's some imminent danger, or sometimes they go out in the camp and they feel that, oh, I am being protected. Okay, if they are away from the abuser, do as much as you can to provide confidentiality and to protect. So when you call, hopefully there's not a delay.
I
Okay?
guess my question was more so, if we live in Riverside County, just call the Riverside line.
Yes. Yes. What I have found, if you feel that danger is imminent, call law enforcement. Everybody has law enforcement. This is what they think. Let them decide if they need to further this thing on to where you live, okay, or decide whether I need to take this child into custody for protection-wise as well. Okay? So remember, reporting to a Child Protective Service agency. It doesn't always have to be CPS. CPS will probably get called. Okay? But you can also call law enforcement. So I'm out in Gillette. I call law enforcement because they will respond. Okay? Now you have done your duty. You have reported it. Okay? Okay. Tell me, folks, what your knowledge base in terms of abuse? What types are they? Just okay. Physical. What else? Verbal. Okay. Emotional. Mental. Okay. Yep. Physical. All the abuse that I know fits into three categories. First of all, physical. Okay. Fractures. Okay. Shaking. The results from shaking the child. Burns. Hair pulling, hair loss, clump of patches in their hair have been pulled out. Sometimes it's not so obvious, yanking out the entirety of the root and just leaves a pretty big hole or patches all over the head. Okay, bruises, scratches, anal and oral tearing, some of the places that you wouldn't necessarily think. Okay? There's some very cruel people out there. Very cruel people. Now, I do not expect you to go and, anal and oral, no. It is not your job to go do an investigation. Remember, reasonable suspicion that a child has been abused. Come here, I want to see you. I want to examine you. No. That is not your role. That is not your role. It is never your role unless you work in that department. Okay? Scars, abrasions, sexual assaults. Okay? Punctures, internal bleeding, some things that you really don't see. Okay? Sometimes you'll see kids, it's 103 degrees outside and they're wearing a sweatshirt, sweatpants. Ooh. And it's very hot and you're wondering why. Oh, I feel comfortable this way. Lacerations and bites. All signs of physical abuse. Okay. Swelling. Swelling in places you don't normally see. Okay, neglect. What do you think? What is it about neglect that you guys think about? What are some of the things that you might see? Hungry, malnutrition. What else? Clothing. Is that? Bathing. Okay. Communication. You said, yeah? Education, schooling. Here's one. Medication. Formula. Feeding. What else? Neglect. Just overall gross neglect. Okay? Educational. Hey, you should be in school. You think, here we have a person who's, 5, 6, 7. Hey, how come you're not in school? I see you out here playing all day, every day, Sometimes kids will say, oh, I got in-service today. Oh, okay. Okay, you had in-service yesterday too? Yeah. Okay. Medical appointments. Medication. Sometimes it's easy to ask, what about medication? Well, my insurance, it's not covering. I don't have the money. Okay. And how long has that been going on? Oh, for the past 6 months. So what have you been doing? Have you asked for help? Have you done, it may not be the true neglect, but maybe the circumstances that they just may need to be hooked up and they don't know how. Okay, all right. Okay, do you know that you have this service? Do you know that you have those resources? No, I don't. I don't know how. I don't have a car. I'm a single parent. I got 5 kids and I don't know how. Okay, all right. Okay, dietary, feeding, formula. I've been giving this formula for so many months now. I just don't know what to do. Okay, all right. Have you seen a doctor? No, I haven't. I don't know how. My insurance doesn't. I don't have the money. It goes on and on. It may not be true neglect, but it's still neglect. And the reason why we would make this report to child abuse, to Child Protective Services, is maybe to get them hooked up. It doesn't necessarily mean it's abuse. Okay? I've talked to many parents who have tried, and they just gave up. They have no other resources. Okay? Gross hygiene, living conditions, callous. I've seen children who are still infants, and they have calluses on their knees, they have calluses on their feet, and you think, this is not normal. Yes, exactly. And sometimes we would see blisters on their mouth because they've been jammed constantly. And the frenulum, that little piece of tissue that's at the front underneath your lip, okay, it's supposed to be connected, but it's not. It's been torn by constantly jamming their bottle and drink this, drink that. I don't give it. Okay? You don't normally see that. By then it hurts, it bleeds, the child is fussy. Stop crying, stop. It's just one thing that leads to another. Okay? Drug exposures to street drugs. There have been times when maybe kids have acting differently or inappropriately or dangerously and been taken to the hospital and they come up with a positive drug screen. Well, we were just at the park and running around and they get exposed to this, Well, that's possible. Okay. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes that's the truth. However, it gives us the opportunity as healthcare professionals or even police to go ahead and take a look at everything else. You got knees, you have 10-month-old who've been crawling around, but they have calluses on their knees, their clothes are dirty, they smell filthy, they got calluses on their feet. Lack of supervision and monitoring. I think about a case in which a mom was having a garage sale. She was so busy with her garage sale that she forgot and neglected her kids. Where was her child found? Upside down in a 5-gallon bucket of water on the side of the house. Had no idea. But she was much more interested in her garage sale. Okay? Very sad. Very sad. Emotional abuse. Any ideas? Emotional abuse. You're going to be surprised. In and by itself? Yeah. I heard you do some of that tonight. No. But you know, I understand. Having kids myself, you get, in fact now, single parents who do not have family members or relatives to help, and the child is, quotes, fussy or in pain for some reason, and parents are exhausted, that they don't know what to do. They're tired. They can't sleep. They can't make decisions. They're tired. Lack of love and attention and bonding. Okay? So many times I see parents sitting there with their child, feeding them, not engaged. That's a big flag for me. Versus the other kind of parents who are in the room holding their child and they are, engage. I love you. And they take them and they talk and they smile at them. Versus the parent who just sits there, rocks back and forth, sticks the bottle, puts the baby back in the crib, and that's it. Day after day after day, feeding after feeding. And the results of that I have seen, where the child development is not there. And on the other end, I've seen it where they just don't know how to show love and affection. Yes? Oh boy, that's a tough one. Yeah, I've seen people who take immediate action, bust the window, and do that. Yeah, that is, with or without I left the air conditioner on. It's hard to imagine or to think where people's thinking are. Okay? I can go through the whole spiel about what happens when you leave a child. Well, the interior temperature of a car, especially in Southern California, or in Colorado when it's 35 degrees below zero. Is it neglect? You better believe it. You better believe it. I just went in just for a few seconds. I don't care. You do not do that. Clear? Yeah. Labeling. And I see this an awful lot. You idiot. Man, you're stupid. I can't believe I ever had you. Over and over and just shut up. I wish I never had you. Over and over and over. You're good for nothing. Emotional abuse is very hard to litigate. It's very hard to assess. Social deprivation, locking up or chained. I want you to think, really? We have people like this who would do this to their kid? Absolutely. We would find children chained, locked up to a bed. As one father, I remember very clear here telling me on a 10-month-old baby, I wanted to teach them a lesson. Really? I wanted to teach them a lesson, so I locked them up. I chained them to the bed. Crazy, huh? Crazy, crazy, crazy. Humiliation in the front of others. There's a little boy. When I say little boy, I'm thinking he was age 7. Began bedwetting for whatever reason. Okay. The parents couldn't deal with that. They didn't know what to do. They were so angry. They were frustrated about his bedwetting. So what did he do? Put his 7-year-old son in a diaper. That's it. Just a diaper. Chained him to the tree out front and waited for his classmates to come by at school and see him like that. And what was it? I'm going to teach you a lesson. That happens, folks. Okay? It does happen. Anything else, folks? Yep. Okay. You have this in front of you. 1 in 5 churches reported allegations of abuse. Okay, when abuse occurs in a church, most likely it is by our respected members. Okay, that is a very difficult one. Why? And it goes to sometimes where people in the church who do not file reports. Why? What do you think the reasons why for not filing a child abuse report in church? What's that? Okay. Anything else? It was a respected member. Oh, if I make a report, I'm gonna ruin their lives. Oh. And I don't want to be responsible for that. They're going to find out. Exactly. What about the kid's life? Anything else? Yeah. It's not the kind of statistics that we publish for all churches, for our churches to know, is it? I don't think risk management does that, but they do have it. They do have it. The average age of victims is in 8 to 11 years. Guess what, folks? What happens in 8 to 11 years? What clubs are they in? Adventurers, Pathfinders, where they begin to look at the leaders as, oh, this is somebody that I love. This is somebody I can look up to. I really respect them. Oh man, Mr. Gamundoy, he's the neatest person in the whole world. There was a case up in Central California where the director was known as, Mr. Pathfinder, who was sexually abusing kids for years. He was known as the Pathfinder director, a very well-established director in the church, of course. What a place to have a whole field of victims that he could attach to. Okay. More than 90% of the victims know the perpetrator in some way. Okay. Let me give you some stuff that I found out locally. From 2018 to 19, before COVID, there was an 8% increase in the number of substantiated child abuse from 5,000 to 4,000. So 8% decrease. Okay? Since July of 22, neglect is the most common form of child abuse. Any ideas what happened in July of 2022? What happened? COVID. What's that? Or tried to go back to work, yeah? 2022, that was what? Not that long ago. Okay? Who reported it? 21% were educated personnel, 19% was law enforcement and legal personnel, 11% was medical personnel, and 10.3% were social service people who reported. Okay? Perpetrators during that time was parents and caregivers. And here again, caregivers were included as foster parents, babysitters, and relatives. It was somebody that the child knew that was in their care. Okay? Riverside County, this is June, as of June 22. Ethnic demography, Hispanics, 337,000 plus. What did I hear? Oh, it doesn't happen in our culture. You know, the other part of that, it doesn't happen in our church. What are you talking about? Okay. The whites, 163,000 plus. And this is just Riverside County now. Asians, 29,000 plus. Blacks, 32,000. And those family members who are multicultural is 20,000. So, from faith-based child abuse and neglect, the last statistics that we have is 2015. Approximately 684,000 reported. Okay, faith-based. Okay, and I suspect there are much more, only because, why? Oh, it doesn't happen in our church. We don't do that in our church. We don't report. Any questions? Churches are encouraged to adopt policies that will provide a measure of safety. I am going to give you, this is from our church here. Go ahead and pass that out. Okay? Just some guidelines about keeping our kids safe. And, read it. 2-adult rule. Never talk to a child by themselves. I've always had, when I'm talking to, let's say, for example, a girl, I've always had a member of my staff who was a female and myself. Even though I spoke to them privately, the door was kept open. Okay? It's to cover yourself. Okay? Open door policy to avoid one-on-one situations. Okay? Now, look at that first statement. Churches are encouraged to adopt policies. It is part of your church's responsibility to develop and choose I just had it tip on my tongue. A safety officer in your church. That includes not just only the church facility, okay, but this is the safety and protection of children. Okay? And they have policies at NAD on the website for stuff like that. Okay, I can hook you up to a person who used to be the vice president of risk management, who does risk management assessments, with children and protecting their children in church. So he'll take a look at your physical adopt. He'll take a look at structure, that could cause an injury to its members, But you can get very specific about children. Okay. 6 months waiting period for new volunteers. You got people out there who are very, very interested in volunteering and helping out. And if they have a specific request for dealing with children in adventurers or pathfinders, and they're new, or you don't know anybody who knows them, hook them up, pair them up with somebody who can supervise and mentor them. See how they do. Okay, as it says here, the church manual, but it needs some revamping too. But the basis for having church safety and prevention of children is still quite sound. So you can take a look at that. Okay, our responsibility. That you can see, but I want to go beyond that. This is a general form that's an Adventist Risk Management, okay, or SECC. It's a ministry volunteer form that you could use. Okay? It's to me, and I'll tell you this very, very clearly, it is your responsibility to get one like this. Use the form. Okay? This is available to you on the website. And not only complete the form, follow through. Follow through. I'll get more into detail about something here very shortly. Okay, you see this? ncsrisk.org. For years now, NAD had requested sterling volunteers to be the source for doing background checks and screening, okay, for the North American division. Okay. Southeastern California Conference finally adopted this sterling volunteers as mandatory. If you are going to be involved with Pathfinders, Adventurers, and in the church children's ministries, fill out the form. Fill out the form, number one. Number two, go to this website. It will direct you to Sterling Volunteers. Okay? They will provide the screening to see if you have been involved in something hinky or whatever you want to call it. It's a way of protecting the most vulnerable in our church, the children. Okay? The people who know that they're in the business of abusing children or harming children will not go and check in. They will not they'll say, oh, no, that's not what I want to do. Okay? Part of that volunteer screening through ncsrisk.org, Sterling Volunteers, it will ask you, have you had a child abuse and prevention class? If you are here today listening to me, the answer is yes. Today's date, January 14, 2024. It will be good for 3 years as part of your screening. For those of you who are thinking of going to Gillette, Wyoming for the camporee, this will cover that. Okay. One of the interesting things about the child abuse training is that there are things that are changing. One of the things that are coming out in terms of children's prevention of child abuse is, what do you do when you have child-on-child abuse? You have two 16-year-olds who is involved in inappropriate touching. Okay? Is that child abuse? What do you think? Is it reportable? Okay, some would argue no, because they're not adults yet. Okay? Reasonable suspicion. If you have any concerns, do I need to talk to the parents? Sure, that's your choice. Okay? It's in a gray area. Very difficult to deal with. Very difficult to think, sometimes when I make a call, if it's not really all that very specific, hey, I get another colleague and I say, listen, I'm having difficulties here. Let me talk to you about the facts here. What do you think? Okay. All right. So go there. Okay. Southeastern California Conference. This is mandatory. Mandatory. Do it. Do it. That way you're covered for the next 3 years, no matter where you go. After 3 years, you take another course. I'll see you again back then, and let's see if things have changed. Okay? And I'm telling you, what has changed? Oh, the kids nowadays are different. The kids nowadays are different. There's specific things such as internet abuse, trafficking. Okay, how do we deal with that? How do we keep our kids protected from internet? You know. Last page here. Become proactive. When I say proactive, fill out that volunteer form. Go and do with sterling volunteers. Come on. Okay? Respect relationships. Let me tell you about relationships. When I say things have been different, I had a mom who brought in their child, and I was asking her about medical history and social history, and she gave me all the information that I needed about medical history and social history and family history, that kind of thing. But she made a statement that made me think, oh, this is different. And what was that statement? I asked her a question, and the statement was, oh, the other mother. And I'm thinking, the other mother? So I'm thinking, oh, grandmother? Stepmother? Foster mother? What am I leaving out? Okay, not necessarily gay marriage, but a partner. A relationship. And I said, oh, okay. Godparents, okay? So when it says to respect relationships, what am I having you to think about? How many of you remember the term the nuclear family? Okay? Nuclear family. What did the nuclear family compose of? Mom and dad? 2 kids? What else? Grandparents, maybe? Yeah? And maybe a family turtle, okay, 2.5, whatever, 2 point whatever. I mean, that was the standard that was used to measure nuclear family. Mom and dad, 2 kids, hopefully it was a boy and a girl, because balanced, and they had, the family dog. Okay? So what do we have now? Remember what I said about changing families. What do we have now? You got grandparents taking care of grandkids and an adult. What else? Baby, whatever. Yeah? What else? Latchkey kids. What else? Yeah. Grandparents. Yeah. You know what? I've already taken care. I've already been there, done that. Why do I have to take care of my adult son or adult daughter and their kids? Forget it. Okay? What else do they have? Single parents. Try to make it on their own, right? Yes. Foster parents. Yes. Godparents. Yeah. Respect the relationships. If you have particular attitudes about certain things, let me give you one. LGBTRMOUSE. Okay? Oh, you have a partner? Oh, no, I can't talk to you. Yeah. What have they added to that? Not just the LGBT. Now they have binary and non-binary and transgender stuff. Like, what? What do you mean? You have a child, you have a teenager or a pre-teenager who are just coming into trying to learn what that means. Respect relationships. That is so hard because your attitude is cutting them short. You know what I mean? In other words, okay? Educate adults and children. Okay? It is not your fault to be beaten every day. You don't deserve this. That's wrong. You don't deserve this. That's not the way life is. Educate your children. Protect your flock. Acting responsibility. Common sense? Protect your flock. Yes. Protect your flock. Like how the shepherd takes care of the children. Okay? It is your responsibility. Make it your responsibility. Okay? And here's another thing. That's something that I read the other day that was very interesting. And it was very clear. It was in the Journey magazine. You know the recorder that comes every month? But this is a new publication that they're putting out. It's called Journey. This one section that talked about, it is your responsibility to educate those, to protect those, to provide the knowledge and skills for those who are coming behind you. Okay? Does that make sense? It is your, and it says very clear, it is your responsibility to educate those, to provide them the skills and experiences for those that are coming behind you. Just because you've been involved in directorship for the last 10, 15 years as a director, it doesn't mean like, oh, I give up and I'll let the next director figure that one out. You know, I'm tired of it. I need to take a break. No. Has it happened to me? You better believe it. You better believe it. I listened to myself complaining about this is the way it should be. Da, 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 da. And then I finally realized that I was just complaining. I wasn't doing anything about it. I said, oh no, I gotta stop this. I gotta stop this. Regardless of, you know, well, when we were your age, you know. Anyway, any questions? Any concerns? Clear? Not so clear? Clear? Okay. Like I said, this is a very basic, very general presentation about child abuse. Now, there are other presentations such as temperament analysis, such as discipline, such as how do we deal with developmental growth. And of course, a lot of those things are changing now. The kids now are different. It's interesting. I read an article the other day on millennials. And you know what they said about millennials? Millennials, they said, and I said, ooh, how true this is. They said millennials are fantastic at getting information. They know how to get information with you like that. They can go on the net. They can get on their phones and they know how to access information. Anything you want to know about anything, they can get it like that. But they said, however, do not put a millennial in charge of supervision or monitoring other people. Like, what? Do not put them in a position of supervising or monitoring other people. Why? The simple answer, because they don't know how. They're great at getting information. Oh, you want to know about how to discipline kids? Let me get that for you. I'll get a YouTube for you. Here we go. All these examples of YouTube on how to take care of kids, how to change a light bulb, all of that. But don't ask me to mentor, to supervise, to communicate to children. right? This group of millennials is also highly stressed, very depressive, and very anxious. And we're trying to train adolescents to take care of children, to monitor children. You see where I'm going? Things have changed. Things have changed drastically. So many times I think it begins in the home, and it begins way back there. You know, one of the things, and I'll close by saying this, one of the things that I have seen in the news, in articles, etc., the one thing that has not been carried along for the last several years is how to be resilient. Is how to be resilient. I had an argument with my mom, so therefore I'm going to go hang myself. And those are literal things. I had an argument with my boyfriend, so I'm going to go and take drugs. Really? So a lot of those skills, a lot of those things in life are not taught. How do we reach our children? You know, how do we reach our children in the church? I went to Australia just to go see my grandchildren, but I went to a church in Sydney, and I wanted to see their Pathfinders. It was called Mile and Pathfinders. I wanted to study them just a little bit, and I'm thinking, why is this Pathfinder club so successful every year? The one thing that I found, the parents were involved. The parents were involved in everything. Everything. Okay? They used media to communicate what they are doing in their church. And what has happened? People who are looking on Facebook, Instagram, says, what are these kids? The community comes to their church and involve themselves in the program because the parents were involved. But not only that, the parents who were involved in their own kids in the church were models, were modeling behavior for people who were at risk. Beautiful. So I'm thinking, so that's the reason why this church is so successful. They're growing children in their own church to be, number one, Christian leaders making fabulous Christian decisions, talking about the Lord, having fun. What else? Eating good food, how to cook, how to clean, all the things that we do in Adventurers and in Pathfinders that we did 10,000 years ago, right? Anyway, any questions? Any feedback? Anything? Nope? Yes? Reasonable suspicion. That's very important. Reasonable suspicion. I'm not asking you to become experts. I'm asking you to think, to feel, sometimes outside of the box. What I have for you is a pretest that's coming as a post-test to see. What do you think? Put your coconuts together. Lastly, if you have not sign in on the form that I have up here, please do so. One of the things is that, I want you to get credit, because as you go through the Sterling Volunteer site, through the NAD or Southeastern California Conference, it will ask you, have you had this seminar? And you say, yep, January 14th, 2022, and it'll be good for you in 4 years. 3 years. And you're registered with that.
On behalf of the Hemet Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Master Guide Training, Cindy Cox, I would like to thank you, Don, for coming all the way to visit with us and to present this wonderful seminar. Also want to thank the Loma Linda University Church, some of the leaders that are part of the children's ministry, along with San Diego, Philam Church. Thank you so much for making the distance, and just lets you know how committed these church are. And also, I would like to say how each of you are committed to go all the way. And this is one of the subjects where I think all of us, we kind of cringe. Don mentioned that it is just evokes so many memories or evokes so many bad thoughts. But as Jesus Christ says, do not despise even this little child. And so when Christ said that, it's everything, understanding and being informed so that we can be empowered, we can be the leaders that God has called us to be there, ultimately to be their protector, to be the guide, and to be the leader. And also, like what David said the other week, that we are putting our children in a position where they are leading the way. And we saw that last Sabbath as they actually led the way during our communion Sabbath. Amen. And so on behalf of Cindy, we would like to have a closing prayer. And again, thank you so much, Don, for being here with us. And let's give him a round of applause. Let us pray. Heavenly Father God, we thank you so much for sending us, your manservant, Don, with us this afternoon. And Lord, I can only imagine the number of seminars that he has held to inform and to empower every single person that leads out and ministers to our children. And Lord, it takes a special person to accept that call and to run with it. And thank you so much that although it is a very difficult subject, that Lord, we were able to sit and to learn and to be taught, and also to go out there and to better equip ourselves as we continue to create a space, an environment where our children can grow in Jesus and continue to lead their way as they continue to minister to other children and even us grown-ups as well. Thank you so much for our church. Thank you so much for the other true churches that joined us this afternoon. And we thank you so much for Cindy for all the work that she has put in, communicating with our conference, communicating with Don prior to him coming, and doing everything to coordinate, to train up all of us Master Guide trainees to do what you have called us to do to glorify your name. We thank you, and as we are about to leave this place to go to our designated places, give us traveling mercies, especially in this wet, rainy day. Again, we thank you, and bless Don, and Lord, bless his family abundantly. And Lord, we thank you for all that you continue to do and entrusting each and every one of us with your children. In Jesus Christ we pray, amen.